Welcome back, everybody. Episode 63, Light Warriors Unleashed podcast. And this is a solo episode, me having a conversation with you about my recent trip to Guatemala. Some of the things I've learned, some of the things that I discovered about myself, some of the dynamics, some funny stories, the details of the trip, like what we did in connection with climbing mountains and like the experience as a whole. And I just real talk it. Like, I want you to really feel like through these experiences that we go through in life, we can step into courage. We can shy away from them. We can completely avoid them. And they show up in different ways for all of us. And in this episode, I deep dive into this trip to Guatemala, like literally that I just came back from today. Like literally right now, I'm recording this in real time, coming back, like literally getting home like an hour ago. And just holding space for all of the things that are dropping in through that. And I really believe that we are on this life, in this experience on earth to explore, to grow, to challenge ourselves, to step into spaces that we don't have all the answers to, the what if scenarios and all of that space. And I deep dive into this experience and how it shaped me, what I've learned about myself through it, and just some of the dynamics of what Guatemala is and the beautiful connection to Mother Earth through our spiritual evolution that we get to be impacted by every single day if we choose to be. So with no further ado, episode 63, Light Warriors Unleashed podcast. All right, guys. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is going to be an experience podcast episode. It's going to be a whole lot of fun for me to step into this space. For those of you guys watching this on YouTube, if you didn't know, I actually put all the videos onto YouTube and I cut reels for Instagram to promote the podcast. But I literally just got into my house from Guatemala, from a 3.5 hour car ride from the airport to waking up at 3 a.m. But I needed to get this podcast recorded because in a couple of days it has to launch. It's got to go through my producer first in order to get out, and it had to get done today. And I wanted to record this podcast fresh in the energy of the experience of what I just had to be able to share it with you guys. So for those of you guys watching the video, welcome to my world. I feel dirty. Even though that is not true. I did actually have a shower, but I'm kind of still in the grime of the energy of what I just experienced. And I think it's important for us to step into a space today to discuss this because some of you are probably curious as to my trip to Guatemala. Some of you may not be curious at all, but are here for maybe the learned lessons or what I learned or took from this experience. And some of you may skip over this episode this time around. And I am cool with all the dynamics of all the things that are moving through the field in connection with this. But this was a trip. Okay. So most people don't know about Guatemala. They don't know that Guatemala is this beautiful, beautiful country. Like when we flew in, the night we were flying in, which was Thursday, we were flying in. We ended up getting there around, I think, 5 or 6 o'clock, and the sun had set by the time we landed. But coming into Guatemala, and I had no reference point, guys. I really want to give you this example. I have no reference point as to what this experience was going to be, what this really meant. I knew I was going hiking in the mountains, and I knew we were sleeping in a tent for 2 nights. I knew that it was going to be exertion to some degree, but I really had no idea as to what this was going to be and how this was going to show up and how this was going to go. I didn't do any research whatsoever at all. I didn't even know where Guatemala was on the map. Okay. But when my girlfriend, a friend of mine, said to me, "Hey, I'm thinking about going to Guatemala on this hiking trip. Are you in?" I just said yes. Because if you guys have been here for a while, you guys know that that's how I operate in life. If it comes in as an intuitive hit, I am all about experiences and adventures and moving through life and learning new things. And I was like, I'm fucking in. Let's go. No idea what I really signed up for. So we're coming in to Guatemala on the plane. And all of a sudden, I could see the lights of the city. So we fly into Guatemala City, which has 5 million people in Guatemala City. There's 15 million people in the country alone. 5 million of them are in this city of Guatemala. It is crazy. Okay. But flying in, I just kept looking around and it was these dark patches and literally the lights looked like Tetris games. And I could see the mountaintops. I could see the sun setting from above the clouds as we were dropping into Guatemala. And I went, oh my God. And my heart opened. And I knew this experience was going to be dynamic physically. I knew I would go through some challenges mentally in order to stay in the game, which happened in day 3 for me. I maybe wouldn't have made it through day 3. And I'm going to tell you guys about this story too, and about our perseverance and our courage in stepping into the space of things. But my heart opened when we were driving in, and I just went, oh my God, something's about to shift for me. And I didn't know what, and I didn't know how, I didn't know why, and I didn't know all the things, but all I knew was I was walking into an experience. So we land, we finally find our driver. Okay, it took us about a half an hour to find him. He was on the other side where he wasn't supposed to be. He was supposed to be on the side. Intuition said to me, you should go take a look over there, because we were trying to figure out how we were going to get to our Airbnb. And I ended up going for a walk, and I found the driver. Okay, we get to our Airbnb, and the energy is so thick in our Airbnb. So for those of you guys that know me well enough, you know that I am a spiritual person. Everything for me is energy. And I was like, oh my God, I got to clear this place. But first we need to eat dinner. It's like 9 o'clock, right? When we got there, we were starving. We're all hungry. And so we end up going to eat dinner. I do some clearings on the house. They have these weird paintings or like design sketches in the bedrooms of these little kids' faces. In the first bedroom I went in, I was like, oh my God, I can't sleep in this room. Like, I just can't handle this, right? And all the rooms had them. And then we come to realize later, after we started, going through the city, and, when we got back yesterday, we took a tour of the city, looked at some of the local markets. This is part of the artwork of Guatemala. Like, this is how they showcase art. Some of the local artists literally draw these faces. And for me, everything is energy, right? So I was like, holy fuck, I can't sleep in a room with this face on the wall. So I literally moved the painting. And luckily, one of the guys we were with later, before we left the Airbnb the day we were going hiking, he's like, you need to put that back on the wall. I was like, oh yeah, thank you for the reminder. Right. So we're grounding in, and we ended up in Antigua. This is where we started. This is where we ended up. And it is a beautiful, beautiful city. Cobblestone streets, old infrastructures, some of the old churches, and you could feel the energy off of this. It felt very European. Very European. And I've never even been to Europe, but I just had this reference points in my mind, and from past life stuff that I've obviously lived in Europe quite a few lives, and I could feel the energy of this. It was just home. It felt like home. I don't know if I've ever been to Guatemala, in past lives. I don't know if I've ever been there. I didn't feel connected to it that way. My girlfriend did feel connected to it that way. It was her heart that brought us to Guatemala. She feels really called to go back there to do some more work. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Like, the mountainscape that circles Guatemala, the volcanoes that are there, the active volcanoes, the energy, the trees, the infrastructure. Like, when we were hiking, we got to go through all of these different landscapes, like from cornfields to grass to mountaintop to rocky mountain to dusty mountain to water to all of it. It was so, so amazing. But we're walking the streets that first night we're there, and I could breathe almost, except for when I went back to our Airbnb and I had to clear things. Didn't really sleep that well the first night. Rooted in the next day. We ended up touring the city. Luckily, we toured the city a bit because I had to break in my hiking shoes. Brand new shoes. And some of you guys who are hikers are going to be like, oh my God, she's got to be novice. I am. I just want to make sure I say this to you guys. I am not a hiker. I didn't grow up in a hiking family. I didn't grow up in an athletic family at all. I played sports because I wanted to play sports, but my parents were never athletic. We didn't do camping trips. We went to my dad's family's cabin a few times. My grandpa taught me kind of how to fish a little bit. We built forts in the forest, and we did that in the back behind my old house too. But we were never active this way. It wasn't until this year where I hiked Diamante, which is the tallest waterfall here in Costa Rica, with some friends. Or a few weeks, no, maybe it was right when I got back from Salt Lake City, which was in September. So about 2 months ago, it looks like. I went with two girlfriends, to the Cloud Forest here in Chiripo, which is the tallest mountain here in Costa Rica, and hiked the Cloud Forest there. Not the tallest mountain, but the Cloud Forest that was there. And those are the only 2 times this year. Didn't have hiking stuff, went and got all new stuff before we left for Guatemala. So luckily that day before, I was working in the shoes. I had worn them a couple of times. I actually put them in the freezer with ice bags in them so that the ice would expand in the shoe to open it up, which it worked, by the way. But I knew I needed to get these shoes worked in. So we walked the town, we did some stuff. I ended up picking up a Guatemalan carved out wood pipe that doesn't work. It's not like you can test the pipe out, right? But I got swindled for like $15 US, but whatever. You know what? I'm going to put it on my shelving unit, and it's going to become now an ornament in my place that will remind me always of this trip to Guatemala. So got our stuff, got prepared. We're getting picked up at 8 a.m. the next day, grounded in, got some sleep, got stuff organized, whatever it was, got ready to go. Our drivers are late the first morning. They couldn't find our location. We ended up going, whatever. We ended up going into the space of now, day one. So I'm hiking with expert hikers, pretty much, you can call them. They've hiked most of their life. They've hiked all different kinds of places. My girlfriend's hiked Machu Picchu on a 4-day excursion. These guys do like large hikes in a day. They're used to hiking. I am not. Remember this, okay? Luckily, we have a trainer guide that went with us because usually they only have one guide. And we also have a driver that drives our bags around. We take our day pack that has our water in it, our snacks, our change of clothing, because we're literally hiking up into the mountain. So as we start, it's hot and warm. As we keep ascending and going up, which was our first excursion up the mountain, and we slept on top of the mountain, it starts getting colder, right? So you need more layers and more layers. So I made it. Day one, I made it. I was at the back by myself, except for with the other guide most of the trip, because they were all ahead of me. And I felt really weak, we'll say. And guys, I'm not weak. Like, I go to the gym 6 days a week. I strength train at the gym. I have a lot of muscle in my body and a lot more muscle coming into my body, and fats being released consistently all the time in my landscape, right? But I felt really weak, and I had a lot of time back at the end of the line to think about life. Now, there was the trainer guide who was behind me. Most of the time he was with me. And actually the main guide stayed with me for the first little bit till we got to lunch. And then he ended up leading the pack, and the other trainer guy stayed behind me to support me and be there. And this was tough. I'm just going to say that out loud. This was tough. Like, this in my mind was tough. And I went through a lot of conversations with myself over these 3 days. So this hiking, so just so you guys are aware, it's a hiking trip for 3 days. The highest elevation we go to is 9,000 feet. Now, we started off, I think, around 4,500 feet the first day, got up to 9,000 the second day. So we slept somewhere between the peak of this mountain. We ended up climbing 3 mountains our whole entire time there. And it was intense. Like, it was intense. The way up was intense. And we ended up going all the way down into this valley, coming back up. Like, this is what we did. We went down, then we went up, then we went down, and then we went up, and then we went down, and we went up. And so I'm at the back of the line. I'm having all this alone time, and I'm really feeling alone. Like, I'm feeling like I'm left out. I'm feeling like I'm not supported. And I say this with so much truth that I spoke to my girlfriend about it after. And this is my part of my journey of this exploration, and she says to me, it would have been really cool if you had a partner that would have been here. It would have changed. And I said, of course it would have changed inside of this space. But I also understand that things happen in our lives for reasons. So I go, okay, so why am I back here alone? Why is this showing up for me? Why do I feel like I'm not supported? Why do I feel this way? Why is this? And it has nothing to do with the people I was with. It has everything to do with me and my perception about life. So I started dissecting this as I'm sweating my fucking ass off and hardly being able to breathe, walking up the mountain. And I really realized is like, I've done the Lone Ranger energy for a long time. And I'm so grateful that I launched the collective, which is the community, of spiritual minded people that just came out a couple weeks ago. And I'm so grateful I'm creating that community for others to be able to meet like-minded people, for them to step into the space, for them to hold the space, for them to be in the space, right? Because I did the spiritual Lone Ranger thing for a long time. I have some friends in my world right now that play way out in the ethers that I can fully be myself with. And one of them has a podcast I'm going to get interviewed on next week. And we're going to talk about, the crazy stuff. Like, I don't even go into all the things spiritually that I do or I lean into in this podcast yet. And I will. You guys will start to see me in that purity form, all of the dimensions to me. But for a long time, I did it alone. And it was almost like I recognized that, and I felt that wholeheartedly in my heart. And I felt like, and this is my own perception, this isn't anything that they were moving through my energy field, but I felt like I didn't matter. And when I was feeling this energy within myself, and I went, okay, so what does this really mean? And it's really a reflection within my own self-awareness to go, do you matter? Do you really matter, Colleen? Like, do you matter to other people? Does your work matter? Is the imprint you're making in the world matter? And as I reflected on this and did the work in real time while my physical form was going through this crazy shit show, of course I matter. Every single one of us was brought to this earth for a reason. And we came here to experience this, to move through it, to move through our own stuff inside of this space. And of course, every single person has a piece to the puzzle, and I matter too. So this was the conversation I'm having with myself on day one. We get finally up to the fucking hill where we're going to stay, walking through this really cute town. And for those of you guys that don't know me well, like, I love children, and I have been that girl for a long time. I started babysitting when I was 12 years old. When I was young, I used to, bring friends around. I used to have all the kids. Like, I would rally everybody. I was that girl that was always around kids. In school, actually, I was in grade 2, and my grade 2 teacher let me go to the kindergarten room every afternoon to play with the kindergarten kids. And they let me skip all of my half of the day to go into the kindergarten room. And then in grade 3, I convinced my teacher to do the same thing. And in grade 4, I convinced my teacher to let me do the same thing. So for 3 years in a row, I played in the kindergarten room all afternoon. Apparently I have negotiation skills, because it just was my MO. I was always really great with children, always really great with kids. So we're walking through these towns, and I smile at the kids, and I would say, buenas noches, or like buenos dias, or, buenas tarde, whatever time of day it was. And I would smile at them and say, hola. And they lit up, like, you feel my energy. And I was having so much fun. And we had at one point in time, these little 2 boys that were following us, and they were making fun of the way we were walking. And so they were behind me, and I just shook my butt at them, and they started laughing so fucking hard. And it was just like the pure joy coming from these children. So we end up at our campsite, which is actually in the middle of a soccer field, the first night. And kids are playing soccer. There's little boys around. It was actually really cute. And we had stray dogs that were there. And this one stray dog, I would have brought him home. I totally would have brought him home. He was so beautiful. I called him Romeo, and he was just like adorable. Like, I just loved him to pieces. Super grateful I was in Guatemala and didn't bring him home, because I would have also taken him out of his environment. And you can tell he just loves to be a dog and play, where here he would be more like a human domesticated dog, right? So the camp is set up for us. Our driver sets up camp. They start to make dinner. We start to move some stuff around. They can't light the fire. All of us are tired as fuck. We're fucking cold. Okay, guys, like, it's fucking cold. And one of the most beautiful experiences, though, the whole trip was that at this site where we got to look across and see the volcano called Fuego, which is one of their active volcanoes. So they have 3 active volcanoes in Guatemala. One of them is Fuego. Every 15 to 20 minutes, it usually goes off, like, not big lava spill or anything like that, but it just moves energy. There's a non-active volcano beside it where a lot of people hike. It's a day hike, or it's a 2-day hike, and they go all the way up to the top of this volcano, and they can watch Fuego from there, explode and do its thing, which I think is like the coolest fucking thing. We got to see part of an explosion because the clouds covered it a lot. It was pretty cloudy for most of the time, which is probably a good thing, because we're up closer to the actual sun, which means even though we live 9 degrees from the equator here in Costa Rica, the sun's more potent in Guatemala, which is really interesting to consider. So we watched the volcano kind of erupt and go off, waited for dinner. We were in bed by 7:30. Like, I didn't sleep. Like, I slept like shit. So I don't know about you, but like, I haven't slept in a tent in like 30 years. And we slept on really thin mattresses, Now, granted, the sleeping bags were warm, which is exactly what I needed. And I'm by myself, right, in my own tent, because my girlfriend went with her partner and her two boys slept in their tent. Like, and then there's me, right? So there's only 5 of us that went together, and that would make sense, right? So it just kept snowballing into this energy of like feeling alone and this energy of like, you don't matter. And then my tent was like way the fuck out. It was like 10 feet away from them, like in the corner where everyone goes pee. Okay. Luckily, nobody peed on my tent, so everyone's good and okay. But it was really this energy moving through me. And you know, when we go through these experiences and we go through experiences that are like mind fucking experiences that we really have to grit in, because I had to convince myself to go up this mountain. It was a mind fuck all day, day one. Now, granted, my body's not used to it. We were just warming up, you know, like I have never done this before. I'm working in shoes. It was intense physically to get up the mountain. Is it doable for anyone? Anybody can do anything, right? And I just want to make sure I say that anybody can do anything. But sometimes we got to grit in our mind to allow the body to participate in life, right? So it was a mind fuck all day. Then I barely slept that night. And it was rough, like sleeping on the ground. My hips still have bruises on them from sleeping on the ground. But it was kind of fun. Like I actually really love the energy of being cozied up in a blanket and really holding space this way and being all in like that. So it was actually cool. Got up in the morning, super cold, even though it wasn't really that cold, but it felt cold for someone who lives in 32-degree Celsius weather, you know, going up to a mountaintop where I'm in a freaking down coat and pants, like double. I was wearing 2 pairs of pants, you know, long sleeve shirt under the coat, you know, all the things, right? And we get up, you know, brush our teeth, have breakfast, get packed up, and we get on our hike to go. Day 2 wasn't as hard. Okay. So we did hike up quite a bit of the mountain. That was pretty intense to get up to the top summit. We got to the summit, 9,000 feet up. That's where we were. And then we started to go down. Now, the down slope of this mountain, though, was more steady. They call it Guatemala flat. So it goes down at a certain rate, but it's not like steep down. It's like we grazed and it was beautiful. We went through all these landscapes, took these crazy pictures on these like places, like, you know, they have farmland like on the side of mountains. And you're like, how does someone even get there to plant something like that? It's just the way they maximize the space, the way that they culture their land, the way that they take care of things. We got passed by women wearing jelly shoes, hiking up a mountain with a basket on their head, and as we're gassed trying to get up the mountain, you know, or like the donkeys and the horses carrying stuff. Like these guys have to carry their wood from the bottom of the mountain up to their village that's in the top of the mountain every day, pretty much. They don't have, you know, furnaces to keep them warm. They use wood burning fireplaces, wood burning stoves, and like just like wood on the ground to actually stay heated. So we end up getting to our second location for the night, and this location was way fucking colder. Like, and I was like freezing ass cold, and all amazing. And he says to us, we have a surprise. So I want you to really recognize this. So we don't have bathrooms. Okay, we're not at campsites that have bathrooms. We don't have showers. We are literally going to the bathroom in the bush. Okay, that's what's happening. And we get to this campsite. He's like, we have a bathroom here. We have a toilet, which is like super exciting. Okay. And he said, I have a surprise. We're going to go to a temescal in the neighboring town by the man who owns this land here that we're staying on. And his mother's house, he has a temescal. So for those of you that don't know, a temescal is like a sweat lodge. It's like a little infrastructure that's put together to retain heat. And you put coals in it or other types of like ways that you would burn wood, or like have a smoke ability, like a sauna ability inside of a space, and you're closed in. Now we were using it for a bathing temescal. So literally I didn't listen to any instructions. Okay. Like I'm pretty gassed at this moment of time. We're going there to have kind of like a shower bath in this hot stone infrastructure, right? And so they have bricks and clay and wood inside of this space. It's like you're going into a sauna in Guatemala. Okay. It was so beautiful the way we got welcomed into this family. Amazing energy of the women that were there. And I have a very trusting energy. So when people see me right away, the women, they smile, they see through me, they see my heart, and I feel that from them. And I know that they could see me, right? We walk into this space and it's like I disarm their energy. And so Laura, my girlfriend, and I went into the Temescal first together. We're in our bathing suits, right? And all of a sudden she starts whacking me with this leaves. And I was like, what the fuck is happening in here? Because I'm obviously didn't listen to the instructions. She's like, you're supposed to wet it and wet yourself with the leaves. And I was like, oh. So she's like smacking me with these leaves and we can't stop laughing. Like we're just laughing. They have hot water in there and they have one bin of cold water. So we end up getting wet. We got a soap bar. We cleaned ourselves as best as we could, you know, like it's challenging. You're not in a shower. You're not naked. Like you're trying to maneuver it. You know, we're cleaning our woman parts because it's harder to pee, you know, when you're fucking freezing in the middle of nowhere. Right. So trying to get ourselves clean. We did some prayers inside of there, honored the energy. We only stayed in for like 15 minutes. We weren't in there that long. So normal sweat lodges and temescals are meant for clearing. And this was obviously a part of that type of ceremony, but not in the depths of what it actually represents and means. It was more so like, here's a place you can semi-shower so you don't smell as bad. Now, a couple things is like we brought limited amounts of clothing. We all brought just carry-ons, right? And we're on this trip wearing the same, like Laura wore the same socks for 3 days in a row, right? Wearing the same socks, wearing the same shorts, wearing the same shirt. So like, it's not like we smell pretty, like at all. Like, and it was like gross to some degree, but yet so fulfilling in others, right? How do you dismantle these infrastructures in our mind that contain us, that keep us limited, that keep us small, that keep us thinking that we need all these things when we walk into these environments and we see how they live, and not that they don't live with stuff. Like the kids have toys and everybody's clothed and beautiful. The textiles in this country, they're very well known for textiles. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Just amazing things. Amazing, amazing. So we do this temescal. Everybody has their own turn. Everybody goes through the space. Then we're all fucking freezing. None of us brought, like Laura brought a towel, and I think Ben, her son, brought a towel, and the rest of us didn't even have towels because it wasn't on the list of stuff to bring, which was a whole other thing. Okay. The guide company did not prepare us for a lot of it. Luckily, we went into the guide place the day before we left, and she's like, you're going to need hats and mitts. Luckily, we went in there and picked up a couple extra things. One of the guys didn't even have pants. Right? He only brought shorts. So luckily he bought pants that day. So we needed some stuff. We ended up buying hiking poles, which was an asset. Like I needed it. Laura needed it, especially when we were going down. So it was like one of those things, we didn't have all the information yet. I still went, and yet I still did the hike, even though I had no fucking clue what I was getting into at all. No clue what I was getting into at all. And it served my naivety. It served my ignorance, really, because would I have done it then? I don't know. I don't know if I would have known all the information, if I would have known like what the actual slopes meant, if I would have known what it all mean. Would I have done it? I don't know. I can't comment to that right now, but it was like really good that I didn't have all the info, because it almost created this curiosity, which you guys have heard me speak about. If you've been on the if you've been here listening to this podcast before, I speak about curiosity a lot because it's part of the way that we get to move through spiritual evolution, move through expansion energy, move through to grow and expand and learn. So all this was going down. We finally get back to our place and it's fucking cold. Like I'm talking, the wind was so cold that I was fucking freezing at night. Okay. I slept in my coat, in my sleeping bag. This time around though, they put my tent in between the tents of my people, which was kind of fun that I wasn't on the end. And I'm super grateful for that. But it was just so interesting. You know, we ended up getting a fire started there because the guy who owns the property had wood already burning in his house. His kids, 8-year-old children with a cast iron skillet, brought up a piece of wood that was on fire to light the fire up top where we were. And it was just like, it was one of those experiences, like literally in the middle of the night, the tent fell on me and like woke me up and then went back into its own placement. But I was sort of feeling like sick day 2 at night. Throat was sore. My lungs were sore. I felt like I was getting a cold, body aches, fever. I had all this stuff happening. And I'm like, massive headache. And the headache went away when we went into the temescal, which was good. But I was like, shit. So I woke up, day 3 morning, feeling like ass. Literally, I was winded coming up from the bathroom, which is just a really short hill. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this, because day 3 was the worst and hardest day out of all of them. And I'm like, fuck. And I said to Laura, came into my tent. We had our morning instant coffee together. You'd think in Guatemala they would bring good beans. Fuck no. The coffee sucked ass. And whatever. It didn't even matter because it was warm. Okay. So many fucking funny stories happen along the way, which I'm going to shorten that because I'm not going to tell you about them all, because it's just like, if you weren't there and you don't know the people, it may not make sense, but like just some funny shit we were laughing about in the morning. And then I started to cry because I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do day 3. Like, I don't think my body's going to participate. My lungs are fucking hurting. Like, I'm not even going to be able to, I'm wheezing coming up the hill. So I talked to our guide and he says, look, this hike today, we have a lot of spaces for the driver to come and get you. There's pathway, because he couldn't come and get us the other 2 days. The driver went from one point to the next. There was no way for him to come and pick us up anywhere in between day 1 and 2. So we were on our own. But day 3 is like, there's a lot of road. So he can come and get you at any point. I'm going to suggest you start. And then if you are not feeling it, we can call him and he'll be there. And we'll wait for him to come and get you and we'll continue on. So I was like, okay. So I said that to Laura and she's like, oh my God, that's good. I'm like, yeah. So I started. I finished, just letting you guys know. But if I would have let my mind and even my body at that point in time dictate the things, like that commitment that I made to this excursion, to the adventure, to myself, I wouldn't have finished climbing. I wouldn't have made it. So we come up and down this hill, back up another mountain. And then we get to, before lunch, we get to the steepest mountain climbing that we were ever going to do. It was pretty intense, but the guide that was training, I'm pretty sure he was super hungover. They started drinking beer that night. I don't know how you can fucking drink and actually climb a mountain like this with the fucking bag on. You should see his bag. Like, the bag is huge and heavy that he had to carry. And so it was almost like I pulled back a little bit to honor him, because my body actually was feeling good. And it was almost like I got over all my shit by day 3, that it was just like, we're in this, like, we're doing this. This is happening. We're going to go and we're going to keep moving and we're going to climb and we're going to get it done and we're going to move it through. And this is what's going on. So I did it. I got up the mountain, stopped a few times extra compared to everyone else. We got up the mountain, got up it, came down it in the craziest way, like the fucking rocks and stuff we had to walk through. And we ended up where we were supposed to, in Lake Atitlan, Atitlan. Beautiful, beautiful lake. However, you do not want to swim in it because supposedly they dump garbage in it all the time and it's like super raunchy, but it looks beautiful. It's surrounded by volcanoes. It's surrounded by mountains. It is a beautiful, beautiful area. The towns look like very eclectic European towns. Like, at one point, the town we were going into, it looked like Greece. The water was so blue. We were walking down. It was beautiful, guys, beautiful. But I like really, the second we hit the floor too, and we got to the dock at that lake, I took off my shoes because my foot, oh my God. So it was only the 3 toes on my right foot that were hurting underneath them. I didn't have any blisters. I didn't have any numbness. I didn't have any other pain. Everything else was fine except for those 3 toes. Why? I have no idea. But it would go away in the morning. I wouldn't start with it when we hiked. But as we continued to descend, I could feel it. And then my knee started to hurt. Amazing glute workout. We're just going to put it that way and say it like that. But as I look back, we're tired as fuck, right? Then we have a 3-hour drive back to our Airbnb, and we get to our Airbnb and it's one of the most beautifulest places. I'm like, I would rent this for like a couple months and stay here in downtown Antigua. It is beautiful. Some of us are hungry. Some of us aren't hungry, and we all need showers. So the first thing we do is we all get in the shower. We have no hot water. Okay. Fucking freezing our asses off. Like, literally, I'm trying to wash my hair because I'm dirty everywhere. Guys, like, I'm talking about grime. Like, it is like gross. Like, I smell, everything is gross. And I do the best I can in the shower. The next day we have hot water, by the way, just putting that out there. But it's just crazy. We all end up we wanted burgers. I ended up having a pizza. I don't eat carbs. I had carbs this whole entire trip. And that's one other thing I really want to honor, is that sometimes, we make commitments to ourselves to do things like 75 hard, or we make a commitment to not eat carbs or to do like whatever. And we have to adjust as we move through. My body needed carbs. I needed to be able to burn energy, and I needed the quick fix of a carbohydrate, not just a fruit, like a complex carb, to keep my body moving and going to sustain 3 days of hiking. And I ended up having pizza that night, and I had a beer, and I haven't had alcohol in a long time either. I broke my 75 hard, just letting everyone know. And I'm going to honor that and be accountable to breaking my 75 hard, but it actually felt aligned to break it. It didn't feel like I was giving up on myself whatsoever at all. It just felt like I had committed in the diet portion of 75 hard to not eat carbs, and I needed them. So I said, fuck it. I'm going to be over this. I'm still going to hold the space of all the things. Like I have a month technically still, but I had a beer that night. I had a local beer. I love drinking local beer, by the way. I love drinking draft. I love drinking, a specific craft beers. Like I love that experience of just like, I'm not in it to get drunk. I had one beer. I wanted to taste it. What does a local Guatemalan beer feel like, taste like, simmer in my mouth? And I had a beer, right? I had pizza and a beer. And then we were all so fucking tired. We went back home, and then I couldn't sleep again, because it usually takes me a day to ground into a space. I had a king size bed in this room, which was beautiful. This place was so amazing. Beautiful. I couldn't sleep. Anyways, I got up the next day, started to move my body, legs feeling tight, not bad though, compared to some of the workouts I've done, not bad at all. And we end up walking the town, going to some of the local markets, all of us separated a little bit. Some of the guys stayed back, some of us went, shopping, did some things. I had a nap. Other people went shopping while I was napping. Then we all went for an early dinner. And then I was in my room by like 7. I had a shower last night, did some work, aligned in some spaces of stuff, did some journaling and reflected. And I love stepping out of my comfort zone. I love experiencing things. Will I ever go hiking again? Yes, I will. I feel like I'll be more prepared because I've been through it this time. I feel like I want to do more endurance training instead of strength training so I can keep up. So I'm incorporating and changing some of my workouts moving into next week to incorporate some more cardio, because to do this kind of activity, yeah, I have strong legs and yeah, I can push through the muscle, but my lungs need support. My heart needs support, and I desire to be able to serve it that way. So I will. We're talking about doing Colombia and going to Medellin in Colombia and doing that mountainscape there. Whether it will come about, I don't know, but here's what I know is that I'm open to the experiences of all of this. Could I have trained more? Sure. Could I have worked my shoes in more so maybe my feet didn't hurt? Yeah. Could I have done all these other things, like paid attention to, we were going to fucking sleep on a mountain and maybe I should bring different clothing? Yeah. Maybe I should have brought a towel. Guys, I could have done so many things, but here's what I know. If I keep living in the maybes and the what ifs, I'm going to miss experiences in my life. I'm going to miss stopping for a moment. And I watched my girlfriend's partner do this so much, and I honor him for it. He stopped to smell the flowers, like literally all the time. And there was moments that he just said, just like, look at this. And he would just stop and everyone else would keep walking. And it would just be him and I just like looking around. And then he would make these comments about the beauty of it all. And I went, like, just reminding me about grounding and reminding me about what this all means. Pachamama, Earth Mother, Mother Earth, Mother Gaia, man, she did a beautiful job of Guatemala. And it's one of those countries that I would never have thought I would ever go to, ever. But when my girlfriend Laura was like, I'm thinking about doing Guatemala and doing a hike, I was like, I'm fucking in. I don't even know what this means, but I'm in. And, I sit here right now on Wednesday, November the 15th. That's the day I'm recording this podcast. Literally, we flew in. Our flight left at 7. Well, it was supposed to leave at 7:45. It didn't leave till 8:45, but we got picked up at 4 a.m. I am tired. Like, I'm going to literally sit down on my couch after I download a meditation after this podcast episode, and I'm fucking unplugging tonight because my body needs it. My mind needs it. And I need to regroup in my own energetic form too. But I am just so grateful that this opened for me. And, through every single emotion that I went through and every single dynamic of my mind and all the contemplation that I went through and all the time alone and all the time together and all the laughters and all the fucking cold jokes and, watching them try to make a fire when the wind kept blowing it out and, feeding the stray dogs chicken and watching the volcano erupt and taking the crazy photos of us together and doing the video interviews of how we felt about this whole trip and all the things, I wouldn't change any of it. Yeah, sure. I would loved it if I was there with a partner. I would have loved it if I had someone to cuddle with at night who would fucking keep me warm. I would have loved to not be the last, one. I would have loved to be included at the beginning parts where everyone else was. And I made up my own stories about what was happening there, but it's like one of those things, I just wouldn't change any of it because every single moment of this experience has brought me to the next moment of this experience. And I wouldn't be here today as exactly in this form if it wasn't for all those pieces, I found an incense holder, which I've been looking for a long time. And this actually works to hold incense. So that's a good thing. Not like my flute that won't work probably. I'm gonna have to try and practice it. I might need someone to like re-weld some of the holes in it. But that's okay. It just is. I've got Guatemalan coffee I brought back and I can't wait to try that and be in that experience and just honor. It's like, I really want you to feel this. It's like, where in your life are you holding yourself back because it may look too hard, or you may be scared, or you're like, I just don't know if I have the courage to step into this. And I'm going to say to you now, what if it was the most expanded experience of your life that you couldn't even like tell people about, and that you don't even know what even changed yet? Like, what if you did some of your like deepest rooted work while you were climbing a fucking mountain? Technically it was 46 kilometers, but I don't even know. Nobody even knows what we really walked. The guide said one thing, that this said that, the map said this. We don't even know. We walked a fucking long time up and down landscapes in the sun, in the clouds. Luckily we had no rain. Thank you, Mother Nature, for listening to that call and beacon I put out there. But it's like we limit ourselves so much in our lives. Like we think we can't do something, or that we don't have enough, or we're not trained enough, or I don't have the fortitude, or whatever the fuck it is. Where in your life right now are you holding yourself back from experiences? Where? It's probably somewhere in your life. You're holding yourself back from like really pushing yourself at the gym, or really speaking your truth in your relationships, or really expanding in your job and actually taking it by the reins. Somewhere in your life you're doing this. I guarantee you. And I played full out, and I'm just thinking about this to make sure I'm in integrity, because the first couple of days, maybe I could have went harder. Maybe if I would have gotten over myself faster, I could have dropped in quicker. But all of those pieces matter. They all matter in this whole experience. So would I change anything? No. Could it be different? For sure. It could. Will I go back to Guatemala? I hope so. I hope I go take some time there. So much artisan energy is in that space that I could do some really creative things there. Like, and I don't know what that is. And it almost feels like Europe to me. And I'm really being called next year to go to France for a couple of months. I feel that I'm going to go, and I'm still going to keep my place in Costa Rica. I'm still going to do the things here because I don't want to lug all this stuff with me. And I'm going to go for a couple of months to France and experience that. I'll still work from there. I'll do my thing, but I'm feeling called to like the cobblestone old world energy. And there's a lot to explore in that yet. And it was almost like it opened up even more so for me over the last week being in Antigua. So I think that's all for this episode. I don't really have very much to share, but if you have questions, I'm going to highly encourage you guys to send me a DM, write it in the comments here if you're watching the YouTube video, or I'll send me a message, because we never know what might happen. I was told one time, and I'm going to totally flop this quote, but it's like, we only regret the chances that we don't take, and it's like, where in your life right now are you being called to take a chance? What does this look like for you? How does this feel for you? What is this for you? And how about this week? You drop into something. How about you move some energy there? How about you step into that space and start to honor this? Because you know what? You never fucking know. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I'll see you guys all again soon. Bye for now.